I think my juices flow all the time.
Absolutely, absolutely.
You know as much as I know.
Right now, we've been able to stuff the stuff.
The curse is broken. NC State fans, finally. Finally.
Hey, happy Thanksgiving.
I mean, that's a triple play.
The Wolfpack ain't for soft. It ain't for soft people.
It's the most wonderful time of the year. It's the NCAA tournament. My name is Joe Giglio, joined this week. Of course, it's basketball season. That means we have Wolfpack great Scott Wood. All right, Scott, I'm going to start out being positive, and I'm going to say awesome. NC State made the NCAA tournament. Really cool. Thought it was a reward for the complete body of work during the regular season when they won 22 games. And then I thought they were outstanding. Oh, my gosh, the game against Virginia Tech was through the roof. That's the positive part. Well, you just want me to stop there because
hey, listen, I think we've gone long enough to know that you can handle the negative side and I'll handle the positive side. So you might as well continue on so then I'll finish on the positive side.
I was tremendously disappointed in the way that they played against Clemson. I was tremendously disappointed that they let an opportunity to win a tournament for the first time since 1987 and didn't leave it on the floor. I don't like losses like that. I don't like leaving a game and going, they had another gear, they had something left. And then I certainly don't like leaving a tournament and you realize, as I said to Kevin Keats on Wednesday night, Mike Krzyzewski ain't here. Roy Williams ain't here. There ain't a monster walking through that door of the Greensboro Coliseum. You could be the last team standing here. They were not. They were not. So I thought there was a severe missed opportunity. I will say there wasn't a point where I did not think they would make the NCAA tournament. Ohio State losing was huge. They were making a run in the Big Ten tournament. They were a bit deep there. And then Dayton, actually a team that State beat, made the A10 final, but ended up losing to VCU. Once Dayton lost and was out of the way, and it turns out NC State was never really in danger as the 11th seed, and I think I saw 41 overall number 41 overall seed in the tournament. So that wasn't a thing. I know a lot of State fans were concerned. A lot of our friends were concerned, but I didn't see it that way. So let's start with wherever you want to start, being in the tournament.
Well, we can kind of go down the road that we haven't been able to talk about. So you've got your Virginia Tech game, like you said, was firing on all 12 cylinders there.
The sixth.
And then the Clemson matchup, which obviously we said it from the start, it's a very bad matchup for them. I don't like it. I think it's one of those games where you have to take almost DJ out of play. So now DJ has to sit on the bench, especially on the defensive end. I think he's fine on the offensive end. But then when you take DJ out, we've just seen State really struggle offensively to get easy looks and to get consistent looks. They're relying on Creigh-zy to make something. They're relying on Jarkel to make something. And it's just a lot more contested and tough, points as opposed to DJ backing in, getting an easy one, or basically he facilitates and creates. So we kind of saw that coming. Obviously, I do agree because especially after the Virginia Tech, I'm like, okay, we better watch out. I mean, they got hot, and I was expecting that to turn into something, which it didn't, which is, again, a little disappointing. But I also feel like I've seen a common theme here. When Creigh-zy gets going a little bit wild, I feel like they're starting to struggle a little bit. And I think the one thing is when T is firing on all those cylinders, State is firing on all cylinders. I think even towards the end of the year, I think T was a little bit out of it, but even then he just wasn't as engaged, defensively. The energy just didn't seem there. The Virginia Tech game, I was like, okay, there's the T that I love and know. But again, I think he was just, a lot of shots, just wasn't as consistent. And I think that's the thing with this team. It's just going to be, when we have high level guard play, especially out of Creigh-zy, I think they're going to be really good. I think they're also very matchup dependent. I think when we get pick and pop bigs, we are going to struggle unless we make a decision. Maybe we play Jack at the 5 and maybe we play Ernest at the 4 and hope we can rebound. But I think then you lose a whole lot on the offensive end, and you're going to rely on Terquavion to make those plays that he's trying to make in Jarkel. But again, it's relying on making shots.
Terquavion on 30 points in the win over Virginia Tech. Jarkel 20 points, 10 assists in the win over Virginia Tech. I'm not going to lie to you. I said this to Chip Alexander from the News and Observer. The Virginia Tech game is the best I've ever seen NC State play in the ACC tournament that I've ever seen.
Okay.
Now, he retorted, "You, not me, you." And I said, yes, I wasn't here in 87. I wasn't here in 83. I wasn't here in 74 in that building when they played the greatest college basketball game ever played in the ACC championship game. They were just, it's the hope, Scott. It truly is the hope that kills you, which I will tell you right now, I have very little hope for the NCAA tournament. NC State takes on Creighton. Game is in the West Regional, which I believe that's not the West. It's in the South Regional. Taking on Creighton. State's the 11 seed. Creighton's the 6. I think the South is the easiest of the regions. I think it sets up perfectly for Alabama, who is the number 1 overall seed. I think it's a cakewalk for Alabama to the Final Four. Every year there's one region that goes almost exactly to chalk, and then there's one that goes haywire. I think this is the one that goes nearly to chalk. It's a dream scenario for Alabama. But closer to NC State they're out in Denver. Baylor is the 3. Cal Santa Barbara is their opening round matchup. So 3-6. Baylor's the 3, Creighton's the 6, NC State is the 11 there. There is some room to operate, but I hate the matchup for what you just said. The pick and pop, Baylor's bigs. They got guys who can shoot. They got bigs who are mobile. It is a bad matchup for DJ Burns. Doesn't mean State's guards can't show up and play the way that they did against Virginia Tech, but I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. I'm just going to emphasize that again, that I hate it. I love that they got in. I do love that they got in. This was a really important year for Kevin. He needed to show some life after last year. Last year was embarrassing, straight up. Can't finish in last place in the ACC, not with the garbage floating around at the bottom of this league. And I thought it was really important that he changed his staff. He did. We've given a lot of credit to Levi Watkins. He did a tremendous job. Kadeem Richardson, Joel Justice. I mean, the guys he brought in, they've really come in and made a big difference. Obviously, the work that they did in the transfer portal was outstanding. The reward is getting there, no doubt. And maybe I'm being a little bit too hard on them because I'm disappointed in the way that they played against Clemson. But I hate this matchup. I hate it.
See, I'm gonna be the positive guy. I don't mind this matchup at all. I think it's
Okay.
very, very different because yes, their big can spread the floor, but he's only taking 0.2 a game.
Right.
He's only taking half a shot a game. Hall will get 3 or 4 in a game. And I think that is the big difference. Now, if you wanted me to say, from me not watching a lot of Creighton all year and me just going to look at statistics and a couple game highlights, what scares me the most, and this is going to sound kind of crazy, they remind me of my Sweet 16 team. They have 5 guys that are in double figures, and you have no idea who's going to be their leading scorer. That, from a matchup standpoint and a scouting, is very tough. Now, I think we can out-physical them. I think we are more athletic than them. I think our guards will give them trouble. So I do think NC State can definitely get out of the first round. I think I'm not comparing it to Clemson. I don't think it's an overly bad matchup. My biggest fear is that is a lot of scout to take in because you have 5 guys that are in double figures. Now, for granted, they don't go very deep, so you only have to focus probably on those 5 guys. But typically, coaches want to take 1 or 2 guys away And if somebody else ends up with 20, they end up with 20. This case, you got to scout all 5 and try and limit all of them.
So Ryan Kalkbrenner is their big. He's 7'1", and as you mentioned, he's not he doesn't take a lot of threes. So the apples to apples there with PJ Hall is not an apt comparison. But this is a team that gets up and down the floor. Baylor Shireman is a 3-point specialist. He's a kid. Quite frankly, they went into the portal and that they paid a lot of money for, and he was worth every penny. And they have Nimhart. They have some good guards. They are these State in Mark Gottfried's last year played Creighton in the Bahamas, and it was a shootout. I mean, I think Baylor scored 112 points. It was a track meet, and I don't expect it to be in the hundreds or whatever. I do think we'll see a game in the 80s. I do think it'll be an up and down game, but I think you're right. I think this ultimately comes down to which version of Terquavion Smith shows up in Denver. And I'm not one to pin everything on Terquavion this season. I think State has actually been its best when Terquavion is the 3rd best player on the team. And I would start with Jarkel, then I would go to DJ Burns, and then I would go to Terquavion. When he becomes that bonus, when those 30 points that you saw against Virginia Tech become a bonus, now he hit his first shot. He pulled up from deep in that Virginia Tech game, 20 seconds in. He was announcing his presence with authority.
Yeah.
There's a push and a pull to that, right? And I think
it was in transition, which again, I think Terquavion's game changer, but I also think it's a lot easier to guard him, one-on-one with help in the half court. When he's out in transition, it is so hard to guard him. And I think because Clemson controlled the game so much, and because some of these teams down the stretch, whether it was Clemson, Duke, controlled the pace of the game, I think that does not benefit Terquavion as much. But with Creighton being a fast-paced team, and this going to turn into a track meet, I like Terquavion to kind of get back because I think it fits his style a little bit better. He needs the court spread so that he has lanes because everybody's eyes are on him in the half court. And so he has to take a lot of tough contested ones, and it's not as easy.
Your first experience in the NCAA tournament was in 12. You guys get San Diego State. You're in Columbus. There was a plane waiting to take you to St. Louis in the next game. But what do you remember? So that would have been your junior year. It would have been a challenge, after 2 challenging seasons, your first 2 years. What do you remember about the first NCAA tournament game that you played? If I'm remembering correctly, it was during the day. Oh, no, San Diego State was the late game. So you had to wait a little bit. Yeah, it was because the Georgetown game was during the day. So you had to wait a little bit. Just what do you remember about that first experience, finally getting to the tournament after watching it your whole life? I'm sure it was I know you don't get nervous often, but I'm sure you had a little bit of a tingle that day of finally playing on that stage.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely had a little bit of jitters. I think the thing is, too, it was just we were the last team called.
That's right, on the board.
Like, I remember sitting on the plane and Gottfried sitting next to me. He's like, look, CBS wants to be there, but there's no guarantee you're in. So do you want to be on national television when they show you not getting in? And so me and CJ Williams made the decision, no, I'm not trying to risk this. But then once you get in and okay, we're basically the last team getting in, that we're supposed to lose the first round. There's no pressure. It's just like, let's just go out there and play ball and do what we've been doing. I think it was just a great group. I mean, obviously there were jitters at the beginning of the game, but I mean, once you get up and down a couple times, it's just like, all right, let's just go. And I think that's the thing with a lot of these teams, especially the teams that are kind of on the bubble, is they weren't necessarily supposed to be here. So it's kind of that free ride. And it's also, I've told you many times, I don't like mid-majors. I'm a mid-major hater. Mm-hmm. And so I viewed San Diego State as that. And if you go back and look at my career, the one that I want back that I've ever lost is what I would say is Temple. So the next year we had a mid-major. And so I'm just like, all right, let's just step on their throat. And they got us. But it's just one of those things, man. There's really is. There's nothing to compare it to. it's a great experience. I think, Coach Godfrey and the staff always did it. It's the greatest show on earth. It's just there's so much energy in the building, even though it's not your home game. It's just there's always good crowds. There's always, you're seeing Reggie Miller and all these people walking by. So it's just one of those experiences that I'll always remember. And kind of my advice for him is just to soak in the first couple of days, enjoy that per diem, enjoy the per diem. They give good per diem. But then no, all right, when we get shoot around, let's lock in. And then when we get game time, it's just like anything else. Just go out there and play.
What was your per diem in 2012? Would you get $50?
No, it was a lot more than that. Because I remember, it was weird because typically on the road they give you like $20, and then all of a sudden I think it was like $150 a day. It was a good
day,
chunk.
So you're there a day early, right? Yeah,
it's a good chunk of change, and they take care of all your meals. So it was kind of weird that you even got it. But thank you, NCAA. Thank you for the gifts. You get a nice little gift at the NCAA. So enjoy all that.
What was the gift?
I don't know. I've got about 30 TVs, whether it was the ACC tournament or NCAA. So I'd have to say it was probably like a 32-inch TV or a Wii.
Really?
It might have been a Wii. I think I got a Wii, and I still have it, and we still do play on the Wii.
You should probably explain what a Wii is to the youths. They might not know what it is. It also sounds like you're saying weed. You're not getting marijuana. You got to get a video game.
Yes, it's the older version of what you guys would play on a Nintendo Switch.
Okay. All right, let's take a look in the way back machine here. You were a number 11 seed in 2012. Did play San Diego State. You kicked their ass, 79-65. Scott Wood, 1 for 4 from 3. Tisk.
Mm-hmm.
You had a block in that game, 10 points. Interesting. I do remember Rich being really good. He did not have like any fouls in that game. That I do remember. He felt so free. He had 22 points. Deshaun Painter with 9 off the bench. Lowe with 17, 9 and 8.
Yeah,
Very nice.
I remember Lorenzo played really well.
Very nice. And who was their best player? I feel like
Jamal
Franklin. There we go.
And he was really good. He probably averaged what, 23-4 that year?
He had 23 in the game. Yeah.
CJ Williams had his hand full, and then they had another kid that could shoot it that I had to guard for part of the game.
Stop. He played defense.
There's a white kid. Good.
Raython.
Yeah. He had a very good first half. He did not have a good second half.
Yeah, it was close. And then you guys really pulled away in the second half. Next game was Georgetown. So they would have been a 3. You beat them. There was some foul trouble there. I remember that early for Sims. The tables were turned there, but CJ was really good. And Zoe was really good. You guys played your best basketball that year in the tournament. Because you remember you had so many close calls during the regular season. You played an unbelievable schedule, but you didn't beat anybody. Yeah. You beat Virginia, which basically got you in. But it was like you had a very surreal kind of year.
Virginia didn't get in the tournament that year.
I know. You beat them in Atlanta, and it was basically that's how you got in. You kept them out by getting in. So, how the times change.
But again, I think it's one of those things. It's the nice part about it is you've seen, like, dude, they saw Clemson 3 times. You're going to see teams you have not seen. It's completely different. But on the flip side, this is why I think it's going to be hard for State is they got 5 guys they got to scout. Typically, you got 1, 2, maybe a third guy, that you got to really focus on. This game, they got 5 guys, but it's also a breath of fresh air because this team has never seen you. I guarantee you, Jarkel and Traquavion Speed's going to just kind of be like, okay, we got to figure this out. So it is a whole new slate. Anything can happen. New officials. That's another thing. That's probably why Richard wasn't in foul trouble. They haven't seen him. Yep. ACC officials see him every day.
DJ. Yeah. Yep.
So I think that's one of the things that I think it's a new start. You're going to have a quick adjustment because everything is new, but it's also a good opportunity.
What did you think going back to the Clemson game? Speaking of officials, I enjoyed the way that they called DJ in the post. I thought Clemson flopped, and it wasn't a foul. They didn't call it on DJ. They didn't call it on the other guy. It was just a play on. I would love to see that for the rest of time. If you don't reward the flop, then they won't do it.
I don't disagree, but there's also a couple times where they did flop, and now he's tripping over them trying to shoot and misses a shot. So I'm okay letting a couple go, but by the time you get the third one, I get it. You don't want to have to call charge or a block. Two good players going at it, but by the third one, you got to make some type of statement, whether you want to call, even if you want to call a charge or a flop or a block. You got that was my biggest pet peeve, is that he missed a couple easy ones because he's laying on the floor and he's trying to figure out how I'm going to go over him.
You mentioned Clemson and NC State saw each other 3 times. Clemson beat them 3 times. Clemson didn't get in. You feel bad at all for the Tigers?
I do feel bad for the Tigers. I don't feel bad for the manager that would come get the statistics in the game. The senior night, he said F you to the crowd a few times as he was getting the statistics. So he kind of put a bad taste in my mouth. Yeah. I looked him up and everything. I was ready to
on this year's team?
Yes. Manager. The student section behind me was going crazy, yelling, and he just said, "Shut the F up." Literally twice at them, and I'm sitting mid-court, and I'm like, "Oh, dude, I hope we blow them out." But we got blown out that game, and then we got beat in the ACC tournament, so I had no ammunition. But he put a bad taste in my mouth, so I didn't really like Clemson. But I think Clemson is a good team, and I think they, again, I do think they should have had an opportunity to be in the tournament. But that's just the hard part about it. There's always going to be those teams, even if you expand it to 100 teams, you're going to have teams that feel like they have.
I've got an idea. Don't lose to Louisville. Louisville is literally the worst Power 5 team, arguably in history. So don't lose to them. They won 4 freaking basketball games the whole year. You cannot lose to an anchor of a team like that and expect to be rewarded for it, no matter what you did against State. And they also had the home win over Duke. Ultimately, I think the win over Duke and the win over Miami is what ends up being the difference for NC State. Vanderbilt probably helped them too. The way that Vanderbilt played at the end of the season, I'm not sure they weren't one of the 68 best teams in the country, but they were not rewarded for such. So it's always interesting to see who gets in, who doesn't get in. You look at this bracket, I mentioned the South. I think Alabama is the number 1 overall seed. I think this is a cakewalk for them. What do you see in the rest of the South there? Arizona's the 2. Don't know a lot about Arizona other than they are Gonzaga part 2. It's the longtime Gonzaga assistant took over for Sean Miller, and they have a lot of international players. They got a lot of bigs who can shoot. They spread the floor. They get up and down the floor. They're the 2. Baylor's the 3. Baylor's, tough as nails, kind of athletic team. And then Virginia is the 4. I actually think Virginia's going to lose in the first round. What else do you see in the South there?
I think when I first saw it, the funny thing is I was like, all right, I didn't mind our matchup. I think between us and Baylor would be very, very interesting just because of the athleticism and the guard play.
Yeah.
So I immediately, just off the top of my head, I said, State, Baylor, and Arizona. Can State find a way to handle those 2? And I think they match up better with them, probably more so than even Creighton. But I immediately thought, all right, State can get through 2, get through Baylor, get through Creighton, and then that Arizona matchup. So I am hopeful. I do think it's going to be extremely tough. It's like anything in the tournament. They're all there for a reason. Heck, Creighton was preseason top 10, or weren't they? At the beginning of the year.
They were up there. They have a lot of talented players back from the same team.
So I am hopeful for State, but again, a lot of it's going to come down to the guard play. How well is Creigh-zy? I think there's going to be a lot of bright lights on him, so I expect him to be at his best. But I do agree. I think Alabama's going to run through the top section of that and be a very tough out for that portion. So, but I also agree. I think that's a easier run. If there's one thing in State's favor, I think it's an easier run to get to Alabama than some of the other brackets.
You have an overall pick to win this thing?
I haven't really thought about it, honestly. I sat there because I was like, dude, he's going to ask me this on the show. And for now,
well, everyone I like has an injury, so I'm just dumbfounded. I'm also dumbfounded right now that like every single futures ticket I have to make the Final Four, they're all in the same bracket. Houston, Texas A&M, Texas, and There's Miami. I love Miami, and
I think that the funny thing is, man, I just think with the transfer portal, your NIL, and all this other stuff that's coming to play, it is. I'm not going to say it's even, but anybody can get beat. I mean, it's just so
I agree.
steady that
I
I
agree.
wouldn't be surprised if a 12 seed ends up winning the tournament in the next 2-3 years. That's just the unique part about the NCAA right now.
Yeah, I love Texas A&M, and they are a 7 seed, which I cannot understand. That's one of the teams I'm absolutely in love with. And you know me, I don't like Buzz Williams, but he can coach his bald little head no longer off. So, all right, give me a pick for State. Or how many games do they win in this tournament? I'll go over under 0.5.
Over.
All right, I'm going under. I'm going to go under. I'm so sour and disappointed from what I last saw. So I'll go against your optimism, and we'll see. This could be our last time together, Scott. Maybe we'll do a post-mortem.
They've only lost back-to-back games one time this year.
Yeah, I know, but my optimism.
You could I put it like this. You could have put it at 1.5.
I'm broken.
I'm
a broken man. So you got to, I do think they could beat Baylor. Baylor can't score. Now Baylor's crazy athletic, so Baylor's going to be able to keep up with Jarkel Joyner. Baylor might not win, by the way. There's that to worry about as well. I think it's a bad matchup. But I do think it'll be an entertaining game. Kind of reminds me of Seton Hall. Kevin's other team in 18. They got in. They had some really good wins along the way, and they got this kind of tough. And I mean, Creighton's not as tough as Seton Hall, but they could score. They could really score the basketball. So I think it'll be a fun game. We will do one more of these next week, even if they are eliminated this week. Scott Wood, you can't get rid of me that easily. Come on.
Buddy, they ain't gonna be eliminated this week, so you're gonna see.
All
me.
right,
So
perfect.
I'm not worried about it.
Well, we'll be back next week for some more Pack Therapy. If you missed any of our episodes, check them out on YouTube. Watch the full episode right there. If you got any comments, leave them right there. That's all you got to do. Subscribe. Tell Scott how great he is. Tell me how stupid I am. I'm all good either way. Apple, Spotify, the Googles. If you want to just download and listen, you can do that too. Appreciate everyone out there for listening. And until next week, some more Pack Therapy for you. See you then.